Sostein. Today we're going to talk about recreating one of the most iconic dresses in history, the black dress worn in the opening of Breakfast at Tiffany's by Audrey Hepburn. I'd actually argue that this is the single most famous little black dress in all of history. Yes, the original black dress is Coco Chanel's LBM that was in the October 1926 issue of Vogue. Unlike what some people say, it was not on the cover, but it was featured inside, and Vogue called it Chanel's Ford. Since then, the little black dress, or LBM for short, has become a mainstay of fashion. Before this, in the Victorian era, black was mostly a mourning color. You'll recall that Queen Victoria wore the color black for the rest of her life after Albert died. However, with Coco Chanel's dress, she started a revolution in fashion. No longer was the little black dress simply used for mourning, but became a staple and a mainstay of fashion. So now, this particular dress is frequently ranked in the top 10 little black dresses in history, as well as being in the top 10 of the most iconic and recognizable costumes. For me, personally, I've always coveted this dress. So chic, flattering, and utterly New York, which is perfect for the character of Holly Golightly. I would like to add at this time that I also covet the dress that Anastasia wears at the opera, but let's face it, it's a direct homage to this one.
Monsieur.
So why make it now? Mostly because I wanted a modern day formal dress for myself, and also I recently found out that the actual sunglasses that Holly Golightly wears in the movie are still available for sale. Yes, the actual company that made the original sunglasses for the movie still sells the same pair today. The company is called Oliver Goldsmith, and the sunglasses are called the Manhattans and are available to buy. If you want the exact colorway, you're going to want the pair with the green lenses called Dark Tortoise Shell. I have linked them below, and no, they are not the sponsor of this video. I just like sharing official movie props because I think they're really cool. So let's talk about the dress and the collaboration with Audrey Hepburn and Givenchy. At this time, 1961, Givenchy and Audrey have been collaborating for years, since he did her post-Paris wardrobe for the movie Sabrina. If you recall, those dresses are stunning. There's another black dress in there that I have every intention of making someday, and in fact, the white gown with the black embroidery has been on my to-do list for years, along with the red dress from Funny Face, which is also Givenchy. Well, in any case, when Audrey Hepburn found out that she was doing this movie, she spoke to Givenchy, and he designed and sent over this little black dress to Audrey to use in the movie. However, the original dress that Givenchy made had a slit that went all the way to the thigh and could not be used in the film due to the decency rules at the time. So the costume designer, Edith Head, made her own version of that dress that had the same top but with the slit closed. The famous movie poster that, the one that you see everywhere, that shows leg, but the movie poster artist Robert McGinnis admitted that he added that himself and that the reference photos that he was given did not show the slit. And that makes sense considering that the Givenchy version does not have the leg in the front but on the side. Of note, I believe there are 3 of this gown currently in existence, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're all the Givenchy versions, as all 3 of them have slits. As far as I know, all the movie versions have been destroyed, so the 3 that are in existence now are as follows. First, the most famous one is in the collection of Givenchy, like the actual brand. And that one appears to be completely hand-sewn and will be in exhibits here and there. The second one is the one that was sold at auction at Christie's in 2006 for a whopping £467,200, which is $923,000 today, which still holds the record for the 5th most expensive movie dress of all time. Number 1 being the one that Marilyn Monroe wears in the 7-Year Itch, of course, because that one is, of course, like even more iconic. And oddly enough, not on my list, but moving on. So as far as I know, this is also the one that was on the cover of Bazaars that Natalie Portman wore in 2006 as well. We do not know the actual identity of the winner as they were an anonymous caller. Third is the one in the Museum of Traje in Spain. I actually lean most heavily on this version and the Christie version images the most, and those appear to have a slightly thicker strap than the movie version. So if you're wondering why that is, that's how it happened. I am debating going back and thinning out my strap someday, but not today. Anyways, we'll get back into that later. I would like to add that while this particular dress is so iconic, it is only used in the beginning of the movie. Holly does wear other black dresses throughout the film.
You were a darling to help. I could never have done it without you.
but none, as far as I can tell, have the cutout in the back that makes it so distinct. Interesting movie trivia. I love the fact that in the movie, we are told how much this dress would have cost to repair.
$18, repair one black satin dress.
Of course, we can't know that this is the one, as she has multiple black silk dresses, but I like to pretend in my head that it is. By the way, if it cost $15 to repair a dress in 1961, by today's standards, that'd be $157.47. Pay your tailors well, people. Steam aside. By this same math, a $50 trip to the powder room would have been $437 today. Along the same lines, $10 at Tiffany's then would be about $10 today. This means that we could buy a sterling silver keyring, a bottle of deodorant, or that's about it. We couldn't even get the silver keyring engraved. Oy vey. It's about as useful as a sterling silver telephone dialer. So let's talk about the gown. The original was made out of black silk satin, and I decided to do that for mine as well. Single-face silk satin or silk touche has a tendency to roll because of the nature of the weave. It just rolls like the dickens. For this reason, I bought double-face silk touche, which, due to the nature of that weave, eliminates the roll entirely. I got this from my favorite source, New York Designer Fabrics, and used that. Before I get started on how I made this dress, I would like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor for paying for the fabric, the gloves, the jewels, and of course, the classic sunglasses. Today's video is sponsored by Skillshare, who, if you've heard me talk about them before, you know that I use them regularly and love them. They're the reason I know how to do video editing, like the editing I did in my last video about Marie Antoinette, or the editing I'll do later this episode. But they're not just for video editors, they're really for anyone who's into learning new things and gathering new skills. They have a plethora of different classes so you can satiate your curiosity in a myriad of fields, be it fashion design, photography, storytelling, time management, illustration, drawing, or more. So right now I'm taking a class called Portrait Photography, Shoot and Edit Instagram-Worthy Shots, and it's by Jessica Corbasi, and it has 11 classes, each of them less than 14 minutes. I think some of them are only like 3 minutes, and only one is over 14 minutes. And yet at the same time, by taking this series, I just have this whole new set of ideas on how I could take better shots for my Instagram. It's gonna be really fun to explore that as well. Skillshare is affordable at only $10 a month with an annual subscription. The first 1,000 people to use the link in my description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership, so you too can explore your own creativity. Now let's get started with drafting the pattern. So apparently this is a very popular dress to practice drafting with, and it's in a lot of drafting textbooks because it has such bold lines. People message me and let me know and ask me if I use them, but I actually really didn't know that at the time. For me, I just kind of followed the lines from the images in the museum. I actually rather regret that I did not go by the movie as well because they have a lot of great close-ups of the dress. Hey, maybe I'll do it again. So for me, I noticed that the dress has 2 darts in the front, one under each breast. There are no side darts, simply the front going down to the waistline. To make this pattern, I did my usual thing of drafting on my dress form. It helps to have a dress form of your body when using the drafting method, and for me, I use a Beatrice dress form, which is a foam that has been laser cut to my specifications based on a 3D scan of my actual body. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend a duct tape dress form or a bootstrap pattern, all of which I'll link below. So I drew a line where I wanted the dart and then drew the neckline in thin 1/8 inch tape. The back is in 2 pieces, one for the circular cutout and one for the base. I decided to put my closures on the left, but this was a personal decision and not based on any facts. I then pinned the cotton muslin fabric onto my dress form, smoothed it, and traced out the shapes with a pencil. I then cut out some muslin and made a draft. I did try it on and found myself very happy with it, enough to cut out the silk. Please note I did not film this for modesty reasons. For the semicircle cutout back, I cut out a piece of black cotton canvas and used iron-on adhesive glue to glue it onto the silk. This part will face the lining as the glue side is a little wonky and messy. I then sewed this right sides together, clipped the curves, and turned it right side out. Meanwhile, I sewed the darts onto the front bodice 4 times, 2 for the outside and 2 for the lining. I knot the ends of this since this gives the cleanest ends of the seam. I personally chose to cut out 2 of the bodice fronts of the silk duchesse, 1 for the lining and 1 for the outer. I did the same in the back. Then I sewed the front to the back at the sides. Please keep in mind that this is going to have a closure on the side, so you should do 2 that are mirror images, 1 for the inside and 1 for the outside, and keep in mind which side you'd like to use for the lining and which side you'd like to use for the exterior, and I did this by marking it with a pin. If you have different materials for the outside and the interior, this will be extra important. I ironed open the side seams and then sewed the exterior of the bodice to the interior of the bodice along the neckline and the back. I made a note of stopping the seam about 3/4 of an inch away from the shoulder seam using my 2-pin method to mark this. Once this was done, the curves were also clipped and the dress was turned right side out. For this, instead of doing a machine top stitch, I did a tiny prick stitch around the top of the bodice by hand to keep the fabric from moving around after sewing. You'll notice that this prick stitch is barely visible once it's been done. I then sewed the right shoulder strap to the top of the semicircular back piece right sides together. Then I ironed this open and fold the inside fabric in myself and stitch this closed by hand stitching using tiny 1/8 inch stitches. For the left sides, since these are the closures, I simply closed in the seam allowance and closed each. I'll be putting hooks and eyes on the shoulder region as a closure, but I plan on doing this at the end. It was time to add the skirt. The skirt is like a hobble skirt, and from this particular back shot from the movie, you can see that it's basically a rectangle from the bottom up. There is a slight gather at the waist, but the skirt itself appears to have very little flare. This makes drafting the skirt particularly easy. I have a 35-inch hip, so I added 4 inches for a total of 39 inches, 1.25 inches for each seam allowance for a total of 41.5 inches. So this means I cut a rectangle 40 inches wide by 43 inches long for the length of the skirt, including the hem. I then seamed the side with a French seam, which is where you seam it once, wrong sides together with a 1/2 inch seam. Then I turned it wrong side out, ironed it, and put the raw edges inside of the next seam, which I made 3/4 of an inch. I did leave about 8 inches unsewn at the top where the zipper would go for an easy closure. I then gathered up the top and sewed it onto the bodice at the waist to the shell only. I then folded in the lining and hand sewed the lining fold to the skirt, enclosing all the raw edges. I took a few minutes to sew the top of the back to the bottom of the circular portion. Now the dress is almost done. I put on some heels. I chose to wear this with some of my Louboutins because Louboutins are classic and close enough to 1960s heels. Moreover, they're just pretty and I'm so proud of the one pair I own. So after putting on my shoes, I tried on the dress. And once I put it on, I determined what length to make the dress. You'll notice the dress is quite long and just touches the ground in the movies. I made mine slightly shorter for my own sanity. To hem this, I could have just folded over the silk twice, but in doing this, I would have a section of silk that is double folded and triple thick. This might play with the movement of the skirt and limit the flow, so instead of doing that, I serged the bottom edge to prevent fraying and sewed that edge onto the silk using a tiny prick stitch. This way, the thickest part of the skirt will only be folded over once, so it would have 2 layers of silk rather than 3 layers. Maybe this is me overthinking it, but I want to keep the playful motion of this awesome skirt intact. Then it was zipper time. I think this is the first time in years I've put a zipper on an actual garment. I mean, I just don't use them. In any case, after consulting with my friend Erin, who is a fantastic vintage dress collector and historian, I chose to use a metal zipper. I couldn't find an actual antique zipper from the 1960s that was long enough, so I chose to buy one from Mood. According to Erin, back in the 1960s, zipper closures were simply stitched in by hand, especially in couture garments. This would produce a zipper that was nearly invisible and had great motions, since metal zippers actually have much better movement than modern plastic ones. Just look at this invisible black zipper I have here versus the metal one I got from Mood. The metal one is far more flexible, so I could see why this would have been preferred. Granted, I have no idea what the original dress's closures were, but considering that this is in 1961, this seems like the most likely solution. To sew this in, I started with the exterior shell, pinning the lining back away from the edges to get out of the way. I ironed the exterior shell to the exact seam I want it to be and then laid the zipper down underneath it. I closed this and pinned it exactly where I want it to be. I did a quick base in a brightly colored pink thread so that it would be easy to pull out later. I did a quick try on to make sure it all fit and did a tiny prick stitch all the way down, about 8 stitches to the inch. Once the shell was in, I pulled the lining in and sewed it to the zipper on the inside only using a whip stitch. I put a hook and eye at the top of the zipper, and there you go, the zipper was in. I put it on again, figured out where I wanted it to close, and put in 2 hooks and eyes at the top as well. And the dress was done. Honestly, waiting for the zipper was the slowest part of this gown because it was lost in the mail for about a week, but once that came in, everything came together so quickly. This is my most frequently asked question, so I'll just answer it before anyone asks. I would say that in total, this dress was probably about 12 to 13 hours to make, and that's including the zipper, that's including the mock-ups, and that's including everything. So this was really fast. This is a really fast project. In fact, if anyone's interested, I will be posting the PDF of this pattern for sale on my Etsy, so I'll link that below as well. Before they get ready with me, I'm going to take a moment to discuss all the different accessories, because for a very simple dress like this, I feel like the accessories are absolutely crucial. Let's start with the gloves. I chose to buy a pair from Cornelia Janes. They're probably the most famous high-end glove company and have actually sold gloves that are worn in Bridgerton as well as Vogue, and are famously the ones who supply the Queen with her gloves. For the necklace, the original necklace was made by Roger Chemema, who frequently collaborated with Givenchy for his outfits. I bought myself 2. One I got off Amazon for 30 bucks, but I don't really think it would photograph well. So I splurged and got another one off of Etsy by a seller who makes them with real Swarovski crystals. I will link her Etsy shop below for anyone who wants one of these higher quality necklaces, which leaves a cigarette holder. I personally don't smoke, but I'm not opposed to holding a cigarette holder as long as there's no cigarette at the end of it, so I got one off of eBay. As for the underwear, I'm almost certain that Audrey Hepburn would not have worn this outfit directly on her skin. In 1961, the comb bra was still very much in, and you can definitely tell that she's wearing a comb bra. Women would have worn this along with a lot of body shapers like the Merry Widow and a slip. So for this outfit, I ordered a comb bra and a body shaper from whatkatiedid.com. Now, for the sake of modesty, I'm just not going to be showing the get ready with me. As for the hair, She really makes me want to get some bleach stripes as well because her hair looks so good in that movie. But for today's, I just did my best using some fake hair sponges I got from Amazon to give me a little bit of height, and as well as a ton of bobby pins. After that, I put on all the accessories. I'm ready to go around not naming cats and avoiding commitment. Although it may be a little late for that latter one. And I go to New York once a year, or I did until the pandemic, so I'm just going to have to go to 57th and 5th and hang out outside of Tiffany's for a little bit. Although note, these days they don't show jewelry before the store opens, but you know. Overall, I'm absolutely in love with this dress. I love how it turned out and I feel so chic in this. I wasn't planning on it, but I think I want to start a whole series of outfits based on the ones that Audrey Hepburn wears. I feel like as a petite female, the outfits that look good on her are flattering on almost everyone. Moreover, they're just so dang classic. So if you're new to my channel and want to see some other ridiculous sewing projects, don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching, guys.